And I used to be a fan, but I am just disappointed to see that this is where it has landed us. His legacy should die in shame, and he should never be considered anywhere near in the Mount Rushmore or the top 5 or the GOAT conversations of hip hop. What's up, family? Welcome back to another episode of Look at the Material podcast. I'm your host, BK, and unfortunately, we are gathered here today to talk about him again. None other than Aubrey Drake Graham. I'm sorry. And we're talking about him today because not only do I agree with Ebro in saying that Drake is a sickness in the game, I would go further and say that he's not only a sickness or not hip hop, he is anti-hip hop. Let's look at the material. Now, I know we've been seeing all this bullshit with the defamation lawsuit against UMG. We've been seeing him DM politicians talking about you're a goof for going to the GNX tour. But I want to take us back a little bit because I don't think my take is particularly original. I feel like Drake is not hip hop has been said time and time again, especially since his debut. But I think the way that he maneuvers through hip hop, although he is anti-hip hop, is particularly insidious because of who he is and how he presents himself. Now, I don't know how you were introduced to Drake, but I was a young child when I was watching Jimmy from Degrassi on TV. And I think since he's played that role as Jimmy, he has been able to launder his child star image, this very quirky, corny, unassuming guy in a after-school special type of TV show based in Canada. I feel like throughout the years, he has been able to continuously launder that child star image along with the tone of his skin and the texture of his hair in the name of soft boy misogyny. And I say soft boy because before his very obvious pivot to the red pill, the manosphere, academics, Aiden Ross, you know, the cave-dwelling, knuckle-dragging Neanderthals that populate the internet, he was doing what some might call benevolent sexism. Benevolent sexism, according to dictionary.com, can be defined as a form of sexism in which people, especially women, who conform to traditional gender roles are viewed in a positive manner. So if you think about songs like Houston, Atlanta, Vegas, or Practice, it sounds like he's exalting these women that are particularly active in the nightlife, but he's reinforcing their place on the pole, under these lights, under money showers, where they belong and where they should be. It's not until later that he's actively using more charged language like bitches and hoes and taking this more dominant dog-like persona. And he's gotten away with this not only because he benefits from colorism, which can be defined as differential treatment based on skin color, especially favoritism towards those with a lighter skin tone and mistreatment or exclusion of those with a darker skin tone, typically among those of the same racial group or ethnicity. This is a systemic thing. This is not just about your preferences. As in, from a systematic and structural standpoint, people with lighter skin are going to receive more privilege and benefits in our society as it stands. That, coupled with his soft boy emotional persona and labels like sassy and zesty being thrown at him, he's been able to fly under the radar while also participating in a culture that is misogyny in hip hop. And as the years went on, it was always my view that Drake was tired of being labeled soft. He was tired of getting the sassy and zesty insults hurled at him. And so he decided to take up a different mantle, one that is a shift to the right and one that is a silent but dominant champion of the manosphere. According to unwomen.org, the manosphere is defined as a loose network of communities that claim to address men's struggles, dating, fitness, or fatherhood, for example, but often promote harmful advice and attitudes. Think academics, Aiden Ross, Andrew Tate, Fresh and Fit, Sneeko, and the list goes on. I feel like around Her Loss, For All the Dogs, he really digs his heels into this like outward misogynistic stance, right? His associations with Aiden and academics, his stance on Tory Lanez, despite their previous beef that they had. On Her Loss, for example, there were shots at Michelle Obama, at Megan Thee Stallion, at Ice Spice, and fucking Esperanza Spalding. Even the concept of her loss, right? Putting the woman in this position where she doesn't know what she's missing out on and it's her loss because like I'm the prize and I'm the gem. Feeding right into that incel manosphere, red pill energy that think that women owe them everything, and if one woman rejects them, then it's fuck all women forever. Drake doubles down with this type of attitude in For All the Dogs. And actually, there is an article by David Dennis Jr. for The Anscape entitled Drake Made an Album for the Kevin Samuels Generation. On For All the Dogs, Drake continues to regress into misogyny. Again, misogyny is not a foreign concept in hip hop. It is just that for someone who touted himself as a lover boy and as a ladies man and as someone who the women felt safe or safer with, for him to take this obvious grift to the right and this pivot, it's just indicative of the time, and it's not healthy for hip hop. Obviously, misogyny has always run rampant. Sexism, colorism, all these isms and abuses have always run rampant in hip hop. And so when we think about the future of hip hop and we think about who we prop up to carry the mantle of it, I don't think people like Drake, who originally pandered to women, majority of his audience were women, because the men were like, oh, he's soft, he's not hip hop, we don't fuck with Drake. We were the ones that bought his tickets. We were the ones that bought his albums. We were the ones that were streaming his music. We were the ones he was appealing to. And then you turn around and say, did she even really get shot? Free Tory? Fuck Esperanza Spalding? What are we doing here? Speaking of the For All the Dogs era, if I can find this video, I'm gonna put it in this video. But something that David Dennis Jr. speaks about in his article about Drake and the culture of the For All the Dogs era, he tells this story of Drake on stage at his Sold Out Miami show, and says, at some point during the night, he noticed a fan holding a sign that read, quote, I spent all my savings buying tickets for me and my ex, but honestly, never mind, it's really her loss. Again, do you hear this attack on the woman? Like, I spent all this money and you know, she left me and so fuck her, right? Like, you can already feel the underlying ire towards women, right? Drake stopped the show to bring attention to the sign and asked the fan, quote, what the fuck is wrong with her? As he does this, the crowd chants, fuck that bitch. Drake then said he would give the fan $50,000, quote, so you gonna flex on her tonight. He ended the interruption by saying, fuck that young lady. 30-plus-year-old man talking about fuck this anonymous lady. We don't even know why she left this nigga. And this is something that we really need to speak about. The manosphere and all of the Neanderthals that inhabit it, your doo-doo garbages, your academicses, your Aiden Rosses, they promote stories about women rejecting them and women being these choosy, heartless, cold bitches, but they never tell the side of the story as to what made this woman break up with you. Now, to be clear, you can break up with a nigga just because you don't want to be with the nigga, but they always tell it as in they're the victim, but also the dominator. They're the underdog and the overdog, right? And the top dog. And that the woman is the one that just shattered their heart and was cold and heartless, but they never tell about the antagonization, the manipulation, the sexism, the misogyny, the abuse. What did you do in order for her to leave you in this manner? And why are you always the victim in the stories that you tell? Creating a culture where people feel comfortable saying fuck that bitch to a random person who they don't even know, and him doubling down and saying fuck that young lady and let me give you $50,000 so that you can flex on her, is such a fucking cornball move. But it is emblematic of the type of audience and fan he has cultivated. He says, fuck these women that propped up my entire career and image and cleaned me up and made me presentable. I now want the young, incel-brained, red-pilled men to be my primary audience and the primary people that I pander to. And to just build on to this, Drake is not just making albums and creating a culture around his music that is anti-woman and pro-man. He's also contributing to the cesspool that is online gambling and the promotion of it. So Drake low-key has kind of like a side quest of a career in streaming.
W's in the shot. W's in the shot for the stream right here. This is my alter ego. Anita Maxwin. Anita Maxwin.
We saw him do Drizmas with Aiden Ross.
For Slime.
3 up T lanes too, man.
Oh yeah. Free Tory, chat.
We saw him sit down with XQC in a very interesting and awkward interview, I guess you could say, which I believe is also the stream where we figured out he had a bald patch at the top of his head after shaving his braids off. Every single time you see Drake online at this point, it's attached to a steak ad.
Hey! Yes! Also there! Holy shit!
I think gambling online is just, it's a wherever, whenever kind of thing. You know, when I like talk about some of my best nights gambling, is definitely sort of either within the comfort of my own home or the most unexpected places, you know, and that's what I love about playing stake is like, you could really just do it anywhere. You know, I've gambled at a restaurant, I've gambled on a plane, gambled at the Raptors game. Obviously, like, the comfort of my own home is probably the highlight of my gambling experience, for better or worse. The kitchen is my casino, you know, so.
His outward promotion of Stake, which is an online casino and sports betting site, is quite disgusting considering the people who are viewing this advertisement. The Twitch streamers that he associates with and sometimes even streams with and gambles online with have audiences of young, impressionable men, which, by the way, are the ones that are mostly negatively affected by debt that accompanies online gambling and the addiction that follows online gambling.
Of course, you've probably heard that like gambling is addictive, but it is at the level of substance addiction. Like, it creates the most addictive pattern of reinforcement known in behavioral psychology, and the unpredictable patterns of wins and losses that come with gambling creates a dopamine response more powerful than like any other type of reward, like at the same level of substance addiction. It's like hijacking the exact same neural pathways. And since the Supreme Court ruling, there has been a 23% increase in searches for gambling addiction help. Intimate partner violence increases around 10 percentage points when the NFL home team loses. And states that have mobile betting, like legalized there's even stronger effects. And these are just initial studies. It's only been legalized for a handful of years now. I bet we are going to see an even more significant rise. And I'm not even just talking about sports betting. I'm talking about prediction markets, you know, betting money, predicting on who the next pope is going to be, who the next president is going to be. I'm talking about meme coins. That is a form of gambling. All of this is becoming so unbelievably destructive. It is affecting young men more significantly than other groups. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see rise of suicide rates around that, because financial stress, when you are in a hole, when you're gambling your money, you're in a hole, that can lead to very, very profound psychological pain and disruption and hurting your mental well-being.
And it's super sinister because he plays with house money. Stake pays Drake to gamble and to fake win and fake lose money. But the young impressionable boys that are watching him do this are thinking that he's really making all this money by just betting and winning. But we know the house always wins. Ad after ad after ad, some of which were more subtle to begin with and now are just flat on, just on full display, promote a lifestyle of dungeon dwelling, gambling, addicted, broke, debt saddled motherfuckers that are now taking their anger and ire out on the world around them. In addition, I just think it's unethical for him as a rich person to be putting on this charade in front of impressionable working class and poor people, convincing them that if you just try hard enough, you can hit big just like me by online gambling and essentially swiping your credit card to death or gambling your paycheck away. I just think it's so sick and it's sinister and it's manipulative and it's just kind of like bottom of the barrel scum behavior. And actually on Meet the Grams, Kendrick calls him out on this, like, you got gambling problems. And he kind of claps back, I guess, and addresses this alleged gambling addiction in a steak ad, no less.
People keep saying, enough of the steak posts. Enough of the steak posts. What are you, some sort of gambling addict? Am I a gambling addict? Yeah, I'm addicted to being signed to the biggest gambling company in the world, literally stacking up free rackets, watching my fucking right-hand man skirt off in a Ferrari F12. You're right. I'm absolutely addicted to blessing my family and friends, pulling up with a Steph Curry pack, a 30 clip, to a bus station, giving it to somebody that's probably been working a fucking 80-hour work week. Shout out to all the healthcare workers and the single moms. Yeah, I'm fucking addicted for sure. I'm addicted to running it up until I'm the president of Canada. We don't even have a president, so you do the math on that one, you testa de cazzo.
The normalization of this online gambling industrial complex is obviously bigger than Drake, but he is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, most famous faces that are promoting this harmful practice. And if you think about it, you used to have to be old enough to go to the casino and sit in a dark, smoke-filled room in order to gamble. And now you can just do it from your house, whether it's sports betting or it's betting on a TV show's finale or whatever, like everything is betting now. And I would imagine, I don't have the data on me right now, that anxiety and depression would rise as it's coupled with crippling debt. I would imagine people's debt is higher. I would imagine that people are opening more credit cards and destroying their credit. I mean, but I just don't see anything good that's coming of this. And it seems like in the back half of his career, where you would think he would be hitting his 444 or his Magna Carta or his Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers and aging gracefully in this genre known as hip hop, it just seems like all he wants to do right now is stream with cringy, formerly racist white boys and gamble all day. Another reason why Drake is a sickness in the game and why he is inherently anti-hip-hop is his entire reaction and temper tantrum after losing one of the biggest hip-hop beefs of modern time, maybe of all time. I liken his post-beef behavior to that of Trump whenever he lost to Biden in 2020. Trump said the election was stolen. Drake says Kendrick used bots. Trump has sycophants that think he does no wrong and basically think that he's Jesus Christ himself. And on the Drake side, I mean, have you seen an OV-Ho fanboy? Did you see they basically held a little fucking vigil, protests, whatever, outside of the Toronto show on the GNX tour? Do you see them niggas saying that Family Matters was actually the best song of the beef? Do you see them saying that Drake actually won? Is it MAGA or is it OV-Ho? We can't tell anymore. Much like Trump, Drake is always the victim, but also the villain. He's the underdog, but also the top dog. And then in a more on the nose way, he's quite literally associating with more conservative white streamers. People that glaze Trump and love Trump and even interviewed Trump.
Yeah, they can see it.
And in Drake's defamation lawsuit, which we will definitely get to, he only listed black streamers, even though black, white, and everything in between reacted to Kendrick's videos. The same way MAGA cult bros say that Trump was the best president ever and he has accomplished more than any other president combined. OV-Ho fanboys say the same thing about Drake. They literally act like he invented the genre itself, or at least revolutionized it so much that he is the greatest of all time. And I'm actually here to say, if Drake is anywhere near your top 5 after all that he's done pre-beef, but especially post-beef, I can't take you seriously. If you say that he's in your top 5 for singers or pop stars, I'll give you that. Maybe not even that. But in terms of hip hop, not even his best work, which in my opinion is Nothing Was the Same, can save him from the damage and subsequent damage that he will do to this genre, in large part due to this defamation lawsuit. And before we get to the defamation lawsuit and kind of sink our teeth in that a little bit more, I want to make a U-turn and go to Streamer University and his association with the streaming community in general, which does tend to lean more to the right, if you notice. Drake literally beamed in from God knows where to Streamer University to talk to a bunch of fucking overgrown 18, 19, 20-year-olds, which he loves to have the company of, in a pre-recorded video during their graduation ceremony. And it's like, look, I don't knock streaming. I actually love streamers. Some of them I subscribe to, and I think that obviously it's a growing profession and it's a industry that should be respected. I mean, recording live, recording your fuck ups, doing 24-hour streams, doing streamathons, I mean, that takes stamina, it takes creativity, it takes ingenuity. But for this 38, almost 39-year-old man to be beaming in to people that are half his age is problematic, considering certified lover boy, certified. And you know, you could say, well, Drake streams, he's cool with Kai. It makes sense why he would have a pre-recorded speech at the graduation ceremony. Fine, I'll give you that. But something that did rub me the wrong way was the viral clip of streamer Yana J, who is a fresh 18-year-old, freaking out because Drake followed her online. He has no business. He is 20 years her senior, and the power dynamics are so clear that we just don't even have to explain them. How is it that he always finds himself around underaged or barely legal women, even if it's online, considering the entire world is screaming a minor at your ass? Just shameless. Overall, I think his association with 20-somethings in this space is problematic. I mean, most of them idolize and glorify him already because like he's been Drake their entire lives. But it's also not lost on me that he is very clearly associating with the immature red pill culture that the streamers and Streamer University in particular has cultivated. There's actually a great video analysis about Streamer University that you guys should check out by Foreign Man in a Foreign Land. He did a great job breaking down just how unique this sociological experiment was, even though it maybe wasn't intended to be that by the creators. But he also speaks about the stifling culture of sexism, abuse, objectification of women in that space, and it's no surprise that Drake is found at the scene of the crime. Now, I know that we have talked this lawsuit into the ground ever since he filed this defamation lawsuit against UMG and not Kendrick Lamar, but I feel that it is so important to circle back on not only the hypocrisy, but the dangers of this lawsuit and the precedents that it sets for the future of hip hop and just censorship in terms of hip hop. And if you don't think that any of the other things that I brought up in this video are that damning against Drake, hopefully this brings my point home. In 2022, People reported that, quote, Drake, John Legend, Alicia Keys, 50 Cent, and Megan Thee Stallion are among a group of artists, music industry executives, and legal experts who signed a recent letter protesting the use of rap lyrics in court proceedings. 3 years later, he's filing a defamation suit where he is entering rap lyrics into court proceedings.
What? Bro, what are you...
The article continues. On Tuesday, the musicians added signatures to the, quote, Art on Trial Protect Black Art open letter protesting the use of rap lyrics to criminalize Black artists, thereby intruding on and, in a way, censoring creative expression. According to the BBC, over the past 2 decades, hip-hop lyrics have been used as evidence in over 500 criminal cases in the US. And one part of the letter that they all signed says, quote, Rappers are storytellers, creating entire worlds populated with complex characters who can play both hero and villain. But more than any other art form, rap lyrics are essentially being used as confessions in an attempt to criminalize Black creativity and artistry. The letter continues after highlighting the current incarceration of Atlanta rapper Young Thug on RICO charges that cite his song lyrics as evidence of, quote, an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. The article continues, in early October, California Governor Gavin Newsom signed a landmark bill restricting the use of rap lyrics as evidence in court, making California the first state to now have such a law. This is a great thing, and I can see why Drake signed this petition 3 years ago. However, his hypocritical ass has now entered the record as the person that brought lyrics into a court proceedings. And before people say, well, he didn't do it against Kendrick Lamar, he literally used most of the contents in Not Like Us by Kendrick Lamar in the lawsuit. It has everything to do with saying, I lost, my feelings got hurt, and now I want to take the plug out of the wall. Now, back when this lawsuit first dropped, I immediately thought, not only is this hypocritical of Drake, but this is also a very dangerous precedent to set, and it actually sets us backwards if you think of the history of censorship in hip hop to begin with. And I say that because if you know your history, about 20 some odd years after the debut of hip hop, after hip hop was created in the Bronx, Uncle Luke literally took freedom of speech all the way to the Supreme Court in service of artist expression, and particularly rappers' expression through hip hop. Billboard reported in 2015 that since the 1980s, 2 Live Crew's Luther Campbell, aka Uncle Luke, has been one of hip-hop's most outspoken figures, fighting censorship all the way to the Supreme Court, helping pioneer Southern rap. He says, quote, "I was a freedom fighter for rap." And because of his fight, in Luke Records versus Navarro, the 11th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that an album by the rap group 2 Live Crew was not legally obscene. The decision stands for the principle that music has serious artistic value and, as such, does not rise to the level of obscenity, even if it is filled with profanity and misogynistic language. The backstory on this is that, according to firstamendment.edu, this controversy with Uncle Luke began when Broward County, Florida Sheriff Nick Navarro took actions to prevent record store owners from selling the 2 Live Crew's album As Nasty As They Wanna Be. And if you think back to the defamation lawsuit that Drake put forward against UMG, he basically said, you should have stopped Not Like Us from coming out. Similar to what this sheriff did with 2 Live Crew's album. In response to this, the group, comprised of performers Luther Campbell, David Hobbs, Mark Ross, and Charles Wangwan, filed a lawsuit in federal district court seeking a declaratory judgment from the court that the album was not obscene, and an order from the court enjoining the sheriff from taking further actions limiting the scale of the album. The 11th Circuit Court said As Nasty As They Wanna Be, which was the album by 2 Live Crew, was protected by First Amendment and was not obscene. The sheriff claimed that the album was obscene and had no proof of it. Much like Drake has no proof that Not Like Us is actually anti-Semitic, or that the wop 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 was actually a threat against his safety and his life. Drake is the sheriff in this situation, trying to prevent something that they deem offensive from even being sold and put out to the public, not valuing and understanding the artistic, creative, and First Amendment value of hip hop and of diss records inherently. And that's why UMG basically was like, nigga, you got into a battle. Remember when you won against Meek Mill and you said a bunch of crazy shit? Like, we defended you and the First Amendment backed you up. It's the same thing here. You can't provoke the bear and then cry wolf. You can't do that. But you also don't want to create an environment where labels don't want to release certain pieces of art by rappers out of fear that they will be sued for the release of that work. It creates self-censorship, like, maybe I don't want to say that because I don't want to get sued. And then it creates a top-down censorship like we saw with Def Jam and the Clips. Def Jam, whose parent company is UMG, fearful of litigation, tried to force the Clips to censor and or remove Kendrick Lamar's feature on their highly anticipated album, Let God Sort 'Em Out, which is set to be released July 11th, I believe. According to Hip Hop DX, Clips have revealed that they were forced to part ways with Def Jam after the label attempted to force them to remove Kendrick Lamar's guest verse from their new album, Let God Sort 'Em Out. Pusha T said, they wanted me to ask Kendrick to censor his verse, which of course I was never doing, and then they wanted me to take the record off. And so after a month of not doing it, Steve Gawley, the lawyer over there, was like, we'll just drop the Clips. But that can't work because I'm still there. Pusha T was still there. But if you let us go, if you let us all go, ... And he's implying like, I will go. And he signed this distribution contract with Rock Nation, I believe, and that's how they're gonna get it out. But this album has been turned in for a year. We have been anticipating this to drop last year. And it's been held up because they were afraid of litigation because of this defamation lawsuit. So literally trying to censor one of the most iconic rap groups in rap history over fear that this verse could include some sort of digs at Drake? Why not just let it come out and respond if you want to respond? Why do you have to try to stop somebody's bag? And not only the bag, but the creative freedom that comes with hip hop. That is not only anti-First Amendment, it is anti-hip hop. And that is why he cannot be the GOAT. That is why if he's in your top 5, I'm looking at you fucking crazy. And that's why this is going to end up in a very precarious situation in the future as artists and as labels fear litigation because of the precedent that this set. You couldn't just have a temper tantrum on Instagram Live or sending messages through Aiden and through Ack and through Drewski. You have to take it to the court in this ridiculous, hypocritical, anti-hip hop lawsuit. His legacy should die in shame, and he should never be considered anywhere near in the Mount Rushmore or the top 5 or the GOAT conversations of hip hop. He is no leader and he is no hip hop artist. Maybe pop fusion, maybe fucking UK on the weekends. I don't care. He doesn't belong in this sport. He doesn't belong in this genre. And I used to be a fan. I was one of the original like fangirlies of Drake. But I am just disappointed to see that this is where it has landed us, in frivolous court proceedings and temper tantrums and MAGA-like red-pilled, infilled, and infused rants, DMing politicians at 1 a.m., making them apologize for going to a fucking concert. Just drop the music that you have and move on. Or don't, actually. Because that shit you dropped with Smiley, thinking that you were gonna make some waves as he was in your city, as they were cheering him on, one more time, belting A minor in a sold out stadium that you've never sold out and never will probably in your life. Sad. So I'm not just a Kendrick fan, I'm a fan of hip hop. I'm a fan of creative expression, and I'm a fan of the First Amendment. And if you are a fan of those things, I don't see how you could also be a fan of Drake. Now, do what you want, listen to what you want, but I think this makes the case that he doesn't respect the genre and he doesn't respect the black art and black artists that come from it, the struggle that comes from it, the fight from Uncle Luke and others to make sure that we could say what we wanted to say without being barred or censored or jailed because of it. You say you put money on Thug's books and you signed that fucking petition. He was literally in the position he was in because rap lyrics were brought to court, and now you do the same thing. Literally, fuck you, and fuck the Aubrey's Angels, fuck your king, fuck your GOAT. You have no place in hip hop. Maybe pop fusion with Papa Kian and all the others, but not here. And that's all I have to say. Let me know what you thought of this video. Make sure you like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye.